If you hit a two-handed backhand and you want to hit it with more strength, power, and confidence, then you've come to the right place. Today we're going to be analyzing the two-handed backhand of Serena Williams. We're going to be looking at an open stance two-handed backhand and a square stance two-handed backhand, looking at what's similar, what's a little bit different, and I'm going to be letting you know exactly what you can copy. So let's go right to the footage here, and we're going to begin with the open stance backhand, which Serena is moving to right now. And a couple of things I want to draw your attention to right off the bat. First of all, check out her grip here. She has a very neutral grip, which I love. This is exactly what I recommend for amateur tennis players. She's got a continental grip with her dominant hand, her right hand, and an Eastern forehand grip with her left hand, her top hand. This makes it really easy to drive the ball or hit topspin if she'd like. Nothing crazy or funky going on here, pretty middle of the road, which is a great example for those of you watching at home. Now I want you to notice how she's taking her racket up initially around shoulder height. This is going to be about a chest height contact point. So she's starting with the racket up, and I want you to notice her hand as she takes the racket back here. Her dominant hand is in a neutral position. Her wrist, her hand, her forearm are all in line. And as she takes her racket up and then drops, I want you to notice that as her racket drops, she creates a curl with her hand. It actually becomes quite aggressive here, almost a 90-degree bend in her right hand. This does a couple of things. It loads her hand, her forearm, her wrist, which she's going to then unload in a second, which you'll see. It also drops her racket head well below the ball. See the ball coming in here around chest height, and her racket head is now dropped down. I mean, the tip of her racket is down below knee height, which is a substantial height difference. This gives her the ability to hit a very heavy ball, and this curl in her dominant hand really aids the drop of the racket head. It helps her get that vertical swing. Lastly, before we move on to contact, I want you to notice her chest and her hips, how she's turned them 90 degrees to the side, and they stay sideways until she begins swinging forwards. And it's really her body and her hips that bring her arms, and as a result, bring her racket forwards. She's not swinging at the ball with her arms or with her hands. It's her body as a whole that's uncoiling and unwinding. And so when you watch her start to swing forwards, you'll see her hips start to unwind, which leads her shoulders to unwind, which brings her arms and her hands forwards and her racket forward to contact. And now her chest and her hips are facing towards the camera, facing towards where I was standing with the tripod. And at contact, I want you to notice her hand. She's now returned back to a neutral position with her hand and her wrist. We can look right down the back of her hand, down her forearm to her elbow. And so that curl that was in her hand has now come back to neutral. So it's dropped her racket and then brought her racket head up to the ball, which creates racket head speed and also a lot of lift to give the ball lift over the net, and also rotation to bring it back down on the other side of the court, aka topspin. Now, moving forwards, one thing I want to point out that I think is probably the most dynamic and thing that amateur players mess up the most. As she's moving to the ball, look at how her feet are pointed towards the camera and also a little bit along the baseline. I'm going to play through this. As she moves along the baseline, her feet turn as she sets up to swing to face towards the camera. And then as she unwinds and turns towards the ball, watch where her feet are pointing. I'm going to go through the point of contact here and watch how her feet transition from pointing towards the camera to pointing towards forwards, towards the other side of the court, and then eventually pointing in the other direction back to her right. So she's begun with her toes pointing to the left, and then as she made her swing, her feet unwound and pivoted, and then eventually at the tail end of her swing, her feet are now pointing back to the right. And this full pivot, almost 180-degree turn with her feet, allows her hips to unwind, which allows her torso and her shoulders to unwind, which is really the driving, propelling force behind her racket head speed through the point of contact and through the ball. And so now through the point of contact and on through to her follow through, you can see her hips facing back towards the middle of the court, her shoulders facing back towards the middle of the court, and that big turn is really the the central power system for her swing. So let's go ahead now to a more neutral shot. This is a square stance. She's going to be stepping into the ball, and we're going to look at a couple of differences between the two. Similarities include she's turning straight to the side, she's facing to the left about 90 degrees. You can see her hips and her chest facing to the side. Her racket's starting up a little bit higher, which I kind of found a little interesting, just contrasting these two shots together, given that this is going to be more of a driven shot. She's not going to hit this as heavy. She's more in balance, and she's going to be in a better position to attack and really drive through this shot. But she starts with her racket up a little bit higher than the one before. From there, you'll see the same curl in her wrist. You'll see her weight start to transfer onto her front foot, her right foot. And here's that dropped position. And so this contact height is going to be right around waist height, maybe a little bit higher than waist height. Her racket is dropping to about the same depth down below contact, which means this is going to be more of a straightforward swing. There's still lift, but it's not as vertical of a swing as the one where she was getting pulled out off the court to her left. Now, moving forwards, you'll see the same rotation with her shoulders, her hips, and this is going to lead us to the biggest swing difference between the two. As she swings through contact, you see her left arm really extend and drive out through the point of contact. And for me personally, as I'm building good, fundamentally sound framework for my amateur athletes, this is really a big fundamental key for me, to use the non-dominant side actively to drive through, to give the ball direction, to give the swing length, and to allow the arms and the racket to flow away from the body instead of getting caught tight in next to the body, really tense and restricted. So for me, this is a perfect example of that, and a little bit of a difference between when she was getting pulled out wide to her left. She didn't extend out towards the ball quite as much. A little bit more of a circular swing instead of a little bit more of a lateral swing on this one, relatively speaking. Obviously, she's still coming around and following through, and you'll see that here as she comes across to her dominant side. Long, smooth follow through all the way around her body, as with the out wide one, but through the point of contact, she's extending a little bit more and accentuating, exaggerating that length through the point of contact just a little bit more. Lastly, I'll play through both of these swings through the point of contact and through follow through. I want you to watch how she's smoothly decelerating the racket, allowing the racket to travel all the way around her body. That's the open stance one. And here's the neutral stance one. And just watch how her racket travels smoothly all the way around her body without any jagged edges or starts or stops or hitches. It's a really, really big key to smooth delivery, easy power, flowing acceleration through the point of contact is really critical, and a huge difference between low-level players and high-level players. So those are all the big things that you should be looking to copy. Some of them more so than others, like the wrist curl, I don't think is really fundamentally super important for amateur level players. The body turn, the flow of energy up through the body, the kinetic chain, leading with the chest and the hips, all really important. Extension, length of swing, extremely important. So if you'd like a plan to follow to implement these things, click the link down below or go to backhandactionplan.com, and we'll give you a step-by-step process to follow to make your backhand more like Serena Williams. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any comments or questions down below. Make sure to click like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on our future videos. Take care. I'll see you again soon.